Figure it out, Paul. It's not my job.
Hey, whatever. I don't see how that's my fault.
No problem. I don't mind doing it. I have to do everything else around here, right?
There are really a lot of bright people here. But what's missing is they're not recognizing that they are responsible. So instead I see a lot of blaming and finger pointing. We're going to have to work on that. I have a background conversation I need to bring out. There are a lot of really bright people here. But what is missing is people are not saying, I am responsible. Instead, I see a lot of blaming and finger pointing, and that's not consistent with getting on the court, like we spoke about before. That really keeps us in the stands. Now, let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Who's responsible for the water on the floor?
Well, since you spilled it, you are.
No, Simon, that's facilities' responsibility.
Yeah, that was my second guess.
Simon, what are you responsible for around here?
Well, you know, I'm the production manager.
No, that's accountability. We'll talk more about that in a moment. But what are you responsible for?
Are you asking about my job description?
No, not really. Helen, what about you? What are you responsible for?
Well, I'm the quality manager.
Wait, not what is your job, but what are you responsible for?
Quality is a big responsibility.
Giselle, I don't know what you're asking. Aren't we all responsible for doing our job?
Well, yes, of course. But everybody knows their job description and their job title and who they report to. But we're all actually responsible for a lot more than that. Bob, do you remember how the senior leadership team defines responsibility?
Huh? What?
I said, in addition to paying attention to what we're talking about, do you remember how the senior leadership team defines responsibility?
Oh, yes. Yes, I do remember this. Responsibility is response plus ability. And didn't he say response able?
Exactly. Response ability. Response able. Does anybody know what that means?
Isn't that like you have the ability to respond?
It is. No matter what's going on, you have the ability to respond. If a project is getting off course, or a meeting isn't accomplishing anything, or something has fallen through the cracks.
But we do that already.
Really? What about this morning?
What about this morning?
Helen, I need you to call Jamal in the production office. I need that report he promised us, the quality report, and I need it yesterday.
Simon, I don't have time right now. Do I look like I have time to call Jamal for you?
But I have to get into this meeting, and I'm already running late.
I'm sorry, it's gonna have to wait.
Were you able to respond?
Well, I mean, that was Helen and Simon's project.
But you talk to the production office all the time, right?
Yeah. So I should have volunteered to call Jamal for Simon.
Thanks, Shannon.
Hey, you're not off the hook either. What did you do when Helen said she didn't have time?
Well, I guess that important report that's due tomorrow is just gonna have to wait.
Anybody?
Well, if he'd looked around, he would have seen that Shannon wasn't busy. But he let circumstances get in his way instead of finding another way of getting it done.
Exactly, Helen. And we all find ourselves in the habit of letting our circumstances get in our way. Look, I'm not saying what happened is good or bad. We have all just made choices that prevented us from being response-able. Remember, action takes place on the court. We need to get it out there so that we can achieve what we didn't think was possible. And now back to Bob. Bob, what's the difference between responsibility and accountability?
Okay. I remember this too. Accountability is count on ability. That's when you own a decision. And responsibility is when you perform a decision.
Bob, you are becoming a superstar right before our eyes.
Superstar? Did you hear that? She called me a superstar.
We all have our areas that we manage. Accountability assures that somebody owns all the areas. It's about the official division of labor. Responsibility is making sure we meet our commitments and the task gets done, owning the whole. It's kind of like being in a relationship.
A relationship?
Yeah. You know how some people say that relationships have to be 50-50?
Yeah, everybody has to do their part if it's gonna work.
Yeah, but there's a problem with that approach. What happens in 50-50 relationships when somebody isn't pulling his or her weight?
Boy, let me tell you, you just have to make it clear that if she isn't cleaning the kitchen, you're not mowing the yard, and that's that.
So, how did that work out, Bob?
Not great. The city mowed my yard for me and charged me $200, and we got divorced.
I'm sorry to hear that, Bob. But it's actually a great illustration. When we get fixated on 50-50 and we feel like others aren't fulfilling their 50% of the bargain, we get more concerned with what others aren't doing than with what we are doing.
But how else do you do it?
100-0.
What?
Whatever the other person does, you bring 100%. You can always control what you do, and you can always choose to do the right thing. You're always able to respond. It's your choice.
So, if I understand all this, it's my responsibility to clean up that spill.
Yeah. And Bob's, and Helen's, and Simon's, and mine, and whoever else sees it. Or if you're really busy and it's a bad spill, it's your responsibility to call Mark in facilities because he's the accountable person. But I'll get this one.
Nope, I've got it. It's all good.